Good morning from beautiful downtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we're going to move along in our discussion of ethical issues in the professions and business. You'll recall from our first two lessons so far that we've answered two questions, both what is a profession, as well as do professionals have ethical obligations. So we've added to our ethical toolbox some very good steps that will assist us in answering the question, do professionals have ethical obligations? And we ended that discussion by talking about and introducing the topic of integrity. So today, and actually for the rest of our semester together, we're going to be focusing on the idea and concept of integrity in a variety of different ways. We'll do that by starting out in our textbook, A Practical Guide to Ethics, Living and Leading with Integrity by Rita Manning and Scott Stroud. And we'll start with that today by introducing ourselves to Chapter 1, pages 1 through 22 in your book. Let me erase integrity here so that we can talk about it whoa, it doesn't want to erase. Well, it's sort of erased. We'll work on it. Anyway, our first point then is to ask the question, what does it mean to have integrity? To live from a position of integrity. You'd think that would be an easy question to answer. You'd think it might be an easy thing to do in life. But our authors say it's not as easy as it looks and is quite challenging, and takes, at least at the beginning, these three things: compassion, courage, and conviction. And we'll see a number of examples of these three things as we go through our talk today. Integrity then is to start with, it's going to be based on your own values, each person's values. But we can't just stop there, because we always need to turn really a critical eye, an honest eye, on what we already think. That's one of the purposes and values of philosophical inquiry, to say, yes, I believe these things, these are my values, but I also need to evaluate them in a logical, reasonable manner. And also, as a professional and a business person, you're going to be out in the world and you're going to meet people who have a different set of values than you do. So you'll get some information from other people. You already have your own values. So that's sort of like doing research about values out in the world. Then you need to get an accurate and honest evaluation of your own ideas. And we'll get lots of opportunities this semester to do those three things: identify our own values, examine them with logical assessment and evaluation, and talk to others about their values. And it also explore this key point of integrity throughout the term. So we'll follow our authors here, Manning and Stroud, as we go along, and we're going to start by looking at integrity from two basic perspectives. The first one's going to be living with integrity. Okay, and what we're going to talk about here is a question: what does it look like then to live from a position of integrity? So I'm going to get out my trusty thinking cap and put it on as we start here. I don't know, it's not real styling, but y'all ought to have a thinking cap, right, to wear when you are starting out on a new project that you want to explore. So from perspective one, we're going to explore the question, living with integrity, half of what our book is about, right? By looking at it this way: what do you consider to be important to have a fullness of life, to live a full life? What are the things that need to be involved in that sort of thing? And Manning and Stroud have an idea, 5 ideas, I think, if I remember. But we're going to take a moment here and have a little bit of music and a little bit of Michael Bublé, just for your viewing pleasure, while you think of what make a little list of what you think adds up to make a fullness of life for you. So I've got my thinking cap on. You can put your version of it on. If you were here, I'd let you borrow it, but that would be a little odd because we'd all have to share it. So put your own thinking cap on, and we'll bring you a little bit of Brie Del Campo and a picture of Michael Bublé to entertain you while you think of at least 4 or 5 different things that make your life full, that you feel are important to have a full life in this day and age for yourself. So, a little Brie and Bublé. Jordan, take it away. You've jotted down a few ideas about what you consider adds up to make a fullness of life. You can look in the book and see what Manning and Stroud think as well. One of them, and I agree with most of the things they're saying here, and I added a few too. But one thing that makes your life full and rich is to establish and maintain relationships with other people. It's very hard to consider yourself as having a full life if you're a hermit or something. Another one is that we all need some sort of minimal level of well-being. We all need some shelter and enough food and water to sustain us. So that has to be in place in order to go out and have a full life. Which a full life also for me, and I think for everybody, we talked about in our earlier lectures, is to have some sort of purpose that you're pursuing that makes your life meaningful. It's different for each one of us, and but it's an essential feature, I think, to living a full life. And then Manning and Stroud, their focus then, they say, is another really vital part of being able to have a full life is to say, I'm also leading a consciously moral life. And if you're not doing that, then they're going to say, how are you going to go out and establish good relationships? How are you going to pursue a purpose in life? And so they're going to look at that as the basis, and that's involved in integrity. And we're going to look at that, living a morally sensitive life, in kind of 2 ways, and we touched on them earlier. One, we're going to look at them academically. We have course theory, we're going to work on those cognitive elements, our intellect, and we're going to add that theory to our base of knowledge. But we're also going to do what I'd call look at it practically. We're going to learn the course theory and add to our ethical toolbox so that we can go out and apply that in the world. And that will call upon not just our intellect, but also our spirit. I think I just pounded on the mic, so sorry about that, everybody. Our spirit faculties as well as our emotional ones. So that's the way we're going to look at how to live a full life. We're going to add course theory, and then we're going to go out and apply it in the world. That's why we're all in this course anyway. So that's perspective 1, living with integrity. Another perspective, the other perspective, I'm looking for my eraser, oh here it is, ooh goody, I don't have to write it all over, is to, the other half of the book, remember, is going to talk about leading with integrity. What does it mean to have a leadership role and do that with integrity? And in our book, we have, I like these last names, Kouzes, I think that's correct, and Posner have 5 essential features of leaders. So when we ask the question, our second question, what does it mean to be a leader who has integrity? These 5 will be the focus. And they're worth thinking about here, and they'll show up as we go along, and we'll have a good example of this a little bit later. So what does it look like to be a leader with integrity? Here are 5 essential features. First of all, leaders that have integrity model the way. They show with their whole being, which is what we've talked about already, their intellect, their spirit, their emotions. They show and model the way. Here's the way to be a leader with integrity, so that people can see, and it isn't just, as we might say, lip service. So I talk about having integrity, but I don't actually reflect it in the world. No, a leader that leads with integrity models the way for others. A leader with integrity also inspires a shared vision. And if you think about it, inspiration is something that a leader almost always has, the ability to do that. A leader with integrity invites others to come along on the trip. In other words, for instance, my counseling practice is called Harambee Consulting. And Harambee stands, and that's kind of an interesting word, I don't know if you can see it, so I'll print it bigger. It's a Swahili word, and it basically means let us work together. And that's what a leader with integrity would say to their group. Let us work together on this. It's not all about me. I'm the leader, I'm the boss, you got to do it my way, or there's the highway. A leader says, I'm going to inspire a shared vision, for instance, like the one we have in our class. We all have a vision of pursuing and exploring ethical issues in the professions and business. And so we're all going to take part on that vision, and we're going to work together. We're going to Harambee it together as the semester goes along. The third feature of a leader with integrity is that they challenge the process when necessary. They don't challenge a process just to do it, but they're also going to say, hey, just because we've done it this way in the past, this may not be the way that is most effective in the current, in the present, in the now. And we have a great example coming up of Sharon Watkins of Enron, and she challenged the process, and we'll see what that looks like when we get to her example. Number 4, a leader with integrity enables others to act. Pardon me. And again, this is kind of from a position of non-ego. It's not like, okay, I'm the boss and you're going to do it my way. It's you create an environment for everyone to work in that is one that is what I would call allows. There's an old Zen saying that sort of goes like this: act. And basically that's a great thing for leaders to think about, to follow, it's to allow people, right? Not force people to do things. So if you can take that enabling others to act, and you allow them to act, to do their jobs, to contribute to the outcome, rather than force, say, this is the way I want you to do it, and you got to do it this way, and don't do it any other way. Force is not a leadership quality that we're going to promote at all. So it's allow, don't force. And that's how you enable others to act and do their best job. Number 5, a good leader with integrity encourages the heart. And remember, we kind of talked about those faculties of the spirit or heart that we have, and courage, compassion, and conviction. Those 3 we started with today, they are faculties of the heart, faculties of your spiritedness. And you have to be able to have those first to inspire them and encourage them in others. And that's why part of our course, we're working on that. We work on the intellectual course theory, but we also are going to develop in our ethical toolbox parts our character, our spirit, so that we can have an appropriate emotional response as well when an ethical situation comes up. So that, for integrity, are the 5 essential features of leaders from our textbook. And let me see, because you all have already read it, and I'm sure you know the page right offhand, so you could tell me, but it's on page 3 under Leading with Integrity. So at the end of this, let's think about talking about an example. So we have these 5, whoops, we don't have these 5, I took them away. We have these 5 features, and let's turn to page 3 in our book and talk about a really good example. I'm going to read just a little bit from the Enron scandal here in the U.S. We're going to read about a particular person, Sharon Watkins. And so while I'm reading, think about which, if any, of these did Sharon Watkins exhibit in this example. So here we go. When we hear about things like the Enron scandal, we often find ourselves at a loss. How did this happen? What can we do to prevent things like this from happening in the future? We often look to the people in position of leadership, the CEOs, the board of directors, the CFOs, and the outside auditors even, to prevent things like Enron from happening. But in this case, these people themselves were implicated. The CEOs, the CFO, all were responsible for the unethical behavior. But if there is a hero in the Enron affair, it is Sharon Watkins, Enron's vice president for corporate development, who was far enough down the organizational hierarchy that she couldn't even share her concerns with the CEO, Ken Lay. She had to write him a letter. Her letter and her phone calls to Arthur Andersen, Enron's auditors, provided a glimpse into the accounting practices that in 2001 led to the biggest bankruptcy in U.S. history. But her letter tells us something else as well. It tells us that a person of courage and integrity can do, even when he or she is not seen as the leader like the CEO and the CFOs. So when we take Sharon Watkins as our example, certainly she showed courage and conviction. Compassion wasn't really necessary in her case, but she showed courage because here she is, low on the hierarchy in the corporation, saw that there's really unethical behavior and accounting practices going on, and so she said, I have to have the courage to report that and to see it through, to be responsible enough to go all the way through and write a letter to the president, the CEO, write a letter to the accounting firm, and really get that exposed. So she showed courage, conviction. Certainly she just darn knew it was wrong, right? She said, these things are wrong and I have the conviction to know the difference and I'm going to expose it. She was also what we would call a good person who didn't look the other way. She didn't say, oh, you know, nobody's going to listen to me or something like that. She didn't try to ignore the unethical behavior. She stepped up and she took responsibility. And, well, there's another old saying, I think it's Old Saying Day, from Edmund Burke, a nice Irish philosopher. And he said something sort of like this. He said, basically, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good persons, good men and good women, to do nothing. Now Sharon Watkins says, I'm not going to let evil triumph here. I'm going to report the unethical behavior. And so she was a good person who did something. And she followed through with her courage and conviction that was necessary in that particular Enron example. So now we say, which of these essential features, if any, or maybe all, did Sharon Watkins model? Did she model the way to be a good leader or a person of integrity? Oh yeah. She had that courage and conviction to do something and not just say, oh, I'm not responsible, so I'm staying out of it. Did she inspire a shared vision? Not so much, because there wasn't something like that necessary in this case. Did she challenge the process? Oh, you betcha. She said, hey, what the CEO and the CFO are doing is wrong, and I'm challenging them. Not an easy thing to do for her. Did she enable others to act? Partially, yes, because she went to Arthur Andersen, she wrote the letter to them, she said these things are going on and they are wrong. So she enabled them then to follow through and investigate. And did she encourage the heart Well, she certainly had the heart faculties of courage and conviction, and you have to have those first to inspire them in others. So we'll give her a yes check mark on that. So in that particular example of Sharon Watkins, 4 out of those 5 essential features of being a leader with integrity, she exhibited. So she's a great example for us, even though it was very hard for her to do those things. So in light of that, let's take a moment. Jordan's going to give us some music here also. I think we'll just have music, no Bublé this time, just some music. And we're going to think about yourself. Do I possess these 5 features of being a leader? Am I strong in some of them? Are there some I need to work on? Would I be courageous enough to challenge the process at work if the situation warranted it? So let's take a moment here and think about that. Do I possess these? Am I strong in some? Or are there some I need to work on, some I could improve in? So let's take a moment here and just jot down your own personal stance on these. Evaluate yourself. So a moment of personal reflection here for each person. Explored integrity from our 2 perspectives of our book, Living with Integrity and Leading with Integrity. Let's zero in on the concept, the key concept we're going to talk about, integrity itself. Author Rita Manning offers us a nifty beginning point by offering us what she calls I like this, snapshot of integrity, beginning on page 4, the last paragraph there. And near as I could tell, I broke them down into these following 8 points in her snapshot of integrity. Let me grab our snapshot. Is it this one? No, let's be right, sorry. It must be this one. Okay, so now we're just going to start talking about integrity itself. It's a huge concept. So Manning helps us quite a bit here by saying, here's a little snapshot of what does a person with integrity look like. Okay? Number one thing, a person with integrity understands their own values, can communicate their own values, but also can understand others' values and communicate them accurately. Number 2, a person with integrity creates imaginative strategies, and that's going to involve seeing short-term as well as long-term consequences. And this I'm not going to touch on too much here because in chapter 3 we're going to look at different moral perspectives, and we're going to look at what the utilitarians say about this, what Kant says, Immanuel Kant says about this, as well as what Aristotle talks about when we're looking at long and short-term consequences and developing strategies for everyone to follow. A person with integrity respects other persons and is able to build positive, constructive, collaborative relationships, working relationships especially. Just a second. Okay, so it's allergy season and your professora has allergies. So that's number 3, respects other persons and develops positive, balanced relationships at work especially. And number 4 is even when a person with integrity disagrees with others, they do so without aggression, anger, control. They respond. They don't react, right, emotionally. They don't take it personally. So Jordan and I can disagree, but I'm not going to take it personally and say, oh, I feel attacked, and I must defend myself in some way. Because I can communicate my values and try to understand hers because I respect other persons. Even when I disagree with her, I can not take it personally, and I can respond thoughtfully from my intellect, from my spirit and emotions that are balanced, and not just react emotionally. A person with integrity, number 5, genuinely cares and values others as unique individuals. A very good example, I think, of this particular point is we are now recording in Dr. Mark Unverzat's office. He's very kindly let us use it for our recording purposes here in Albuquerque. And I think he exemplifies this particular quality of integrity very well, because I will suggest that he is a health care giver. He truly gives health care, and he's able to give care for others because he sees them as unique individuals with their own values, with their own difficulties, with their own lifestyles. And because he's able to do that, because that's how he views every person, he can give health care. There are some doctors unlike him. Those are health businessmen or health businesswomen, I think. They are not health care providers. And now that I'm looking at this list, I'm thinking that Dr. Mark actually is a good example for all of these. He certainly understands his own values and can communicate them. He's very good as a diagnostic doctor. He certainly can see the long and short-term consequences of people's behaviors and lifestyles, their physical health. He certainly respects other persons. Even when he disagrees with them, he can do so and respond rather than just react. He genuinely cares about each person as an individual. Hold on, we have 3 more in that snapshot. And he also, his character includes bravery, honesty, humbleness, fairness, and we're going to talk about more of those as we go along this semester and add those to our ethical toolbox. Hint, hint, add all of these in the snapshot to your ethical toolbox. And he understands and applies ethical principles in all levels of his life. He doesn't say, okay, well, when I'm at home, I'm going to kind of live by these ethical principles, and oh, well, at work, I'm going to have this whole different set, and well, now I'm out with my friends, and I'm going to have this whole different set of ethical principles. A person of integrity understands and applies ethical principles in all levels of their life consistently. And that's not so easy for any of us. I'm sure he makes mistakes too, but that's a guideline for a person with integrity. And last but not least, certainly, is that a person of integrity carries a strong sense of justice into the workplace. And of course, that's what we're going to be working on this semester also. As we study ethical issues in the professions in business, we're going to work on building a strong sense of justice for each and every one of us. So a quick review, since it's just a snapshot. A person with integrity, whoopsie. And these are also on the website, my lectures posted there, so you can access these there if you don't get them right here, all written down. A person with integrity can understand and communicate their own values and others. They create imaginative strategies because they can see long and short-term consequences both. They respect other persons. Even when they disagree with other people, they don't react from emotion, but they respond thoughtfully with a balanced personhood. They genuinely care and value other people as unique individuals, whether they're clients or the people you work with. Their character involves many things. We've already talked about compassion, conviction, and what's the other C? Compassion, conviction, and courage. I can think of some others. Calmness, confidence. They're all C's. That's interesting. Anyway, their character has bravery, honesty, humbleness, fairness, and we will have more of these to put in our ethical toolbox as we go. And a person of integrity understands and applies ethical values and principles consistently in all levels of their life, and they carry that strong sense of justice into the workplace, which is, of course, one of our goals for the semester as well. So here we go. It's time to take another moment of personal reflection and ask those similar questions. Do you possess those 8 characteristics in the snapshot of a person with integrity? Are you strong in some of them? Are there some you need to work on? And if you need to work on them, how do you think you'll do that? So let's take a moment here and evaluate ourselves on these particular 8 characteristics.
Looking out on the morning rain, I used to feel so uninspired. And when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it made me feel so tired.
Since we're talking about such a broad key concept like integrity, it's sometimes helpful to look at those sorts of things in the negative. So we're going to have a little discussion now about some causes of personal misconduct. In other words, these are times and reasons for integrity to be missing, to not be operating at all. So we're going to look at Aristotle's 4 causes of personal misconduct here in chapter 1. And, okay, that's going to be on pages 7 and 8, I think. And so he's got 4. Sometimes, right, personal integrity, people will act without integrity because of. So here are causes. First one, Aristotle says, is ignorance. Now, I'm not sure I entirely agree with Aristotle on this as a cause, but he says in the realm of ignorance, there's 2 ways to be ignorant. One is, well, you just don't know if it's right or wrong. And I'm not too sure there's too many people out there that don't know the difference between right and wrong. But we'll give him that anyway. Another kind of level is that you don't know how to categorize one of your choices as right or wrong. Choice. The example that Manning offers us is lying. Okay, so under ignorance, in the example of lying, just think about it. I mean, most people know that lying is wrong, where you don't sit and say, oh, well, that person lied to me, but, well, that might have been the right thing to do, right? We know pretty much don't tell lies. Dishonesty doesn't work in personal relationships. It doesn't work in work relationships. And it clearly isn't something a person of integrity participates in. So it might be that a person doesn't know the difference between right or wrong and lying, but I don't think so. Show of hands, no. But it might be that it's hard to categorize when you're tempted to tell a lie, whether or not it's really right or wrong in that instance. And here's an example. My friend brings out her sweet little baby. Oh, don't you love my new baby? Oh, isn't my new baby beautiful? Isn't she cute? Isn't she lovely? And this baby is not so cute and ugly. Or, I'm sorry, it's not so cute and sweet. It's kind of a little homely, right? So what do you say to your friend? Well, you don't want to tell the truth and say, well, really, I think it's kind of homely, but maybe she'll turn out nice, right? Maybe she'll get prettier as she goes. But you don't want to lie and say, oh, it's a beautiful baby. Oh, that's the cutest baby I've ever seen. That would be crazy because you don't really think that. And this is a minor ethical problem here. But in this instance, you see, you might have a problem with what Aristotle called not knowing how to categorize that specific choice. Because I don't want to hurt my friend's feelings. She thinks her baby's cute and adorable. And yet I don't want to lie and just agree with her. So that would be an example where ignorance would be the cause of acting without integrity, telling a lie. The second cause for people to act without integrity is malice. And this one's a little more straightforward. Here, you know the choice is wrong. You know what you're choosing is wrong, and you choose to do it anyway. These are examples when you just purposefully do harm, usually either to other people or yourself. And so two of the causes, ignorance and malice, are related. Here you may not really know the difference between right or wrong. Here you know it and you do it anyway. Either time a person is acting right without integrity. The third one, good old Aristotle mentions, is what he calls weakness of will. And it'll take me a moment to write. And it's interesting, it's very hard to talk about stuff sometimes and write on a board at the same time. I guess multitasking is not one of my particular good traits. But weakness of will involved here are both cognitive and are non-cognitive elements. For instance, your intellect says, do this, do the right thing. Right? So because you've got all your knowledge and your theory, and it says, do the right thing. But your emotions say, well, no, wait just a second here. I might conflict with that. I disagree with that. Do the right thing so quickly. And so here you've got your intellect and your emotions in conflict, okay? The emotions are saying, hey, you know, I'm not sure I want you to do the right thing here. Even though you say it's the right thing, intellect, I'm thinking about it for a minute. Because the emotions might, if you will, foresee a particular negative outcome. For instance, if you're out with your friends and they're doing something in particular, I can't think of an example right now. Anyway, that you know to be wrong and you shouldn't be doing it. Maybe they're picking on somebody or teasing or causing some sort of destruction or something. Your intellect says, hey, don't participate, do not do this, do the right thing and leave, and tell them to stop doing it. But your emotions say, yeah, but I want to fit in, I want to be accepted by my group, kind of that peer pressure idea. So that's a time where there's a weakness of will. Your intellect says do the right thing, and your emotions say, but wait, I have a conflicting purpose here, and I want to be accepted by the group, and to do the right thing would cause them not to accept and approve of me. And notice here that we have our intellect and our emotion, and the thing that's missing here is our spiritedness, that faculty of courage, right? That faculty of bravery, that faculty of challenging the process is missing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the cure for what I should have put up here, the causes of personal misconduct. Aristotle gives us one more because, well, there's one more, and he calls that a failure of empathy. So here, if you think about empathy, oops, see, I told you I couldn't talk and write at the same time. I want to spell it right. The failure of empathy comes pretty much like this. Empathy is one of those faculties of the spirit. It's not an emotion, and you don't think up empathy in your head. You empathize with other people because as human beings, we can, if you will, put ourselves in other people's shoes and realize, empathize with what they're feeling and going through and experiencing. So failure of empathy is a cause of personal misconduct, because what people tend to do when empathy fails, they don't feel for the other person, is they turn it around and they blame the other person or blame the victim, so that you feel you don't have to help, you don't have to intervene. So those are Aristotle's 4 causes of why people might choose to act without integrity, and hence their conduct reflects it. So there are obviously negative outcomes from these 4 particular causes of acting without integrity. And so let's consider then how we might cure these and create an environment of integrity both within ourselves and within the workplace. Ooh, it's going to take a while to do this. I've got to get my strength on. There we go. So now we're going to look at some of the cures. So we recall the 4 causes, and we're going to think up some cures for each one. And I'm going to lump 1 and 2 together. So I'm going to say for ignorance and malice, our first 2. So ignorance and malice, how are we going to cure it? We're going to say, be gone. But then the question becomes, well, how do we do that? Well, how do you solve for being ignorant of right and wrong? Well, pay attention. Be attention to what's going on in your own life, in your work life, and be aware. Be clear about your values. We're going to work on that during the semester, as we said. So be clear about what's right and wrong. Listen to others. Evaluate your own ideas and theirs. Balance your personhood. Get your intellect and your emotions balanced by using those spirited faculties of courage and conviction and confidence and calmness and balance and harmony and more that we're going to talk about as we go along. And observe and put the principles that we're talking about in class into practice. So ignorance and malice, be gone. That's actually 1 and 2 because I fused them together there. So number 3 is that weakness of will. So I'm just going to do weakness of will. What do we say to that? Well, the cure for weakness of will is to be strong. So we've got the be gone and the be strong. And, well, how do you do that? Think of Sharon Watkins. Be strong. Courage, conviction, your confidence again. Each of you is a growing, evolving human being. You're a human being, see? You're not a human doing only. You don't just work. You're actually, at the very base, a human being. And so you have these faculties of intellect and emotion and spiritedness to assist you in living and leading with integrity. And that's going to propel us through the semester together as we work on those. And one of the things weakness of will pays attention to is fear. And sometimes fear is absolutely something we should listen to. We should say, oh golly, somebody's got a gun, I'm out of here, right? But lots of times, many, many times, if Sharon Watkins, for instance, had just listened to fear, she wouldn't have done anything. Fear for her safety even, certainly fear for her position at Enron, fear of lots of repercussions that might have occurred for her. But she didn't, because she had her courage. She was strong. And most of the time, if you look at fear, you'll see what it really is. And it's this. It's false evidence. Oops, I can't write little. Appearing. Jordan, do you know what the last one's for? False evidence appearing real. So lots of times, fear is just some sort of anticipatory thing that we have that actually never really happens. So you want to step back when you're feeling fear, when you have that weakness of will that says, I'm not going to get involved, and say, what's the cause of fear? Is it real, or is it just false evidence that appears real? And I'm going to erase a little bit of this here on fear. So it's a good little review to stop for a moment. Take that moment and say, what is the fear here? Is it true, false? Is it real, or more imagined? Last but not least is the failure of empathy. So when empathy isn't present, what can you do To correct it? Well, belong. Connect with other people. Listen to other people. Value them as unique individuals. Get involved with others. Listen to others. Be sensitive. Develop your non-cognitive elements of emotion. Emotion that's appropriate. Emotion that responds and doesn't just react to situations. And that's what you can carry then into life and live and lead with integrity and make solid ethical decisions when they come along. So here are cures for our 4 causes. For ignorance and malice, be gone. Be aware. See what's going on. Be clear about your values on right and wrong. For weakness of will, we have a good cure, be strong. Our example is Sharon Watkins. And we can each, as an individual, get that balanced sort of response that she had. And for failure of empathy, when you don't empathize with others in the situation, work on your belong, work on your connections to other people. Remember, that was one of the things a person with integrity does. They're able to make positive, balanced human relationships. And remember, through it all, you are a human being, not just a human doing, and that if you work from your being, the doing will follow along well. So that's going to wrap up the 5 points that we're talking about in Chapter 1. So I bid you adios from here in Albuquerque and challenge you to go forth and live and lead with integrity as we begin this journey together. Adios.